Good morning, Promise Academy. Welcome to the official first day of learning in our science virtual classroom, our virtual science classroom. I like that. All right, so in the classroom at Promise Academy, we had been studying the 2K geckos and why they're not, we've been investigating why they're not surviving in their environment, their ecosystem, the rainforest. And so we're going to scale back just a little bit for our first virtual online classroom. And we are going to think like scientists and we're going to map out the scientific process or the scientific method. And we're going to start getting familiar with the terminology, and we're going to use the scientific method or identify the different steps of the scientific method as we continue our virtual instruction this week. All right, so first, want to share the screen with a presentation. All right, so the vocabulary words that I want you to become acclimated or familiar with, the first one is the scientific method. All right, so when we use the scientific method, we're basically using a series of steps that help us to answer questions and solve problems. So the problem that we were trying to solve in Amplify in the classroom was why the 2K geckos were not surviving in their ecosystem. And so the biggest part that we have been emphasizing in the classroom was the problem. They're not surviving. And again, that's in the form of the questions. So the investigation questions that we had that we were researching or we were trying to find answers for each chapter. They're always the problem is always in the form of a question. And the question is why we're doing the experiment or the investigation. Remember, experiments are also investigations. All right. Then once we have identified a problem, we come up with what we think is an answer to the problem, which is also a hypothesis. A hypothesis is an educated, testable guess. It's a testable possible explanation to the problem. Usually it is an if-then statement. So for example, if the 2K geckos are being eaten by the fire belly pythons, then they're not going to survive in the Amazon rainforest. So a hypothesis would be an educated guess to the problem that we're trying to solve or find a solution to. Next would be the procedure. So the procedure is going to be the plan for how we conduct our experiment or our investigation. So what are the individual steps that we're going to do in order to solve this particular problem? All right. So then the steps that we would actually take would be one would be the experiment. And again, experiment can also be investigation, which is what we were primarily doing in the classroom. So the experiment is when we test our hypothesis, and we may need to do this step more than once to see if the results are the same each time. So we were investigating the 2K gecko, but say we were trying to decide if fertilizer makes a tomato plant grow bigger. We would experiment and we would use different kinds of fertilizer to see if we could make the tomato plant grow bigger. The state likes fried green tomatoes, and so I would totally want large green tomatoes. All right, so then the next term that we have is the control group. So the control group is the group where, so I want those large green tomatoes. Well, I'm going to plant my tomato seeds and I'm going to give them a certain amount of water, a certain amount of sunlight. I'm going to make sure they're in a certain pot, certain soil. And I'm just going to keep everything normal. I'm not going to use fertilizer. I'm not going to use anything extra. I'm just going to keep this group normal. This is my control group. And I'm going to compare this to my experimental group. All right. So the independent variable It's the factor in the experiment that I change on purpose. When I add my fertilizer, whether it be liquid fertilizer or the little stick fertilizers, that would be the independent variable. All right. So as a result of my independent variable, I would get my dependent variable. So my dependent variable is the factor that is going to change or is measured as a result of the experiment. So in my control group, I have my regular size tomatoes, which would be these plants over here. But because I added fertilizer as my independent variable to these plants over here, they grew larger. That is my dependent variable. It's the thing that is being measured as a result of the change. So it's kind of like that cause and effect relationship. All right, so data. As I'm conducting my investigation or my experiment, I am going to record my data. All right, so my data is the information that I organize. I'm going to put it in charts, tables. I may even do some drawing and some diagrams, and I can decide what the information means as I analyze my data. All right, so then finally, once I've conducted my investigation, then I will draw a conclusion. Now, conclusion is the answer to my question. It's also a summary of what I've learned from my experiment. Okay. And then based off of what I've learned from my experiment, I will develop a theory. Now, the thing with conducting investigations or scientific um, processes or experiments, sometimes my hypothesis may not match up with my results. And so then I'll have to go back over and I'll have to do some more observing. And then I'll have to come up with an additional hypothesis. And then I'll have to go through the steps of investigating or experimenting again. And then I have to make sure that I have a plan or procedure mapped out as I conduct my investigation, make sure I follow my steps thoroughly, and then analyze that data as I record it, and then come up with a new conclusion. There, when you conduct an investigation, you may not go directly through the scientific method or the scientific process from the problem to the hypotheses to the observations to the procedures. You may not do it in the steps that is laid out in. It may be that, okay, I need to go back and change my hypothesis. Okay, I need to change my hypothesis again. Okay, I need to change my hypothesis maybe one more time. Okay, I need to change my hypothesis again. That's the part of science, is when we're trying to solve problems and we collaborate or we work with our partners. Sometimes we have to go back and we have to test our hypothesis over and over again. Eventually, hopefully, we get to the point where our tested hypotheses, we've collected so much data and we've drawn a conclusion to where we can make a theory. And a theory can be proven. It's a scientifically acceptable general principle, or it's a body of principles offered to explain a phenomena. So we can now say that this is a law or this is a rule, and that is the scientific method. Oh yeah, nice work, nice work. Thank you for learning with me, scholars. But anyway, and so now that we have the vocabulary, I have made this available to you in Google Classroom. It's in Michigan State. It's under scientific method, and everyone should know how to log in. If you don't know how to log in, just hit Ms. Davis, give me a message, shoot me an email. It's also in Chicago State. You can go under the classwork, and I put the title up. Come down, you'll see scientific method. When you click the actual assignment, all of these will pop up. What we just did was the scientific method flashcards, and I have them in Quizlet. They're here in Quizlet. So when you click the link in the classroom, it will take you to Quizlet, and it'll take you directly to the flashcards. And these are the different modes that you can use to learn the vocabulary, and also have it in Notre Dame. Again, go to the classwork and you can find it under the title Scientific Method. You just click on it. And then these are the 3 resources that I have for you. You can also find it in the stream. Whenever we post things on the stream, it'll be over here. But I like to go to the classwork tab and just scroll down and look for the topic. And each week I'll post more things up under the topic. I may edit it and add to it as the days progress. But we'll just play that by ear because the virtual classroom is new for all of us. So the next thing that I want to do to further your understanding of the scientific method, I'm going to actually use Notre Dame. I'm going to go to a video. So I have a YouTube video that when you click it, it should pop up, and it just further explains the scientific method. If you wanted to go to Disneyland and didn't live in Anaheim, California, and had never been there and didn't know the way, but wanted to go so bad, how would you get there? Okay, it's probably by car, but what direction would you go? Which road would you travel? Okay, some of you may have said, I Google it. Sure, that's one way. But say you don't have Google and you don't have a smartphone, what do? Maybe you said a map. Well, that's what I would do. I'd use a road map and follow it, and with a little luck, arrive at Disneyland. There you go. I also might need a compass. Now, scientists are always curious about the world and how everything works and why it works. And they are interested in inventing new things and making things that have already been invented even better. While scientists are doing their work of discovery and experimenting, they use a kind of program. It's called the scientific method. The scientific method is a series of steps to perform to figure things out, to get to the bottom of things. I'm going to pause the video right here. As you're watching the video, I wanted you to make sure that you watch it one time. And then after you watch it the first time, there are about 3 questions that I want you to answer that are also in Google Classroom. They are, let's see, they are here in Google Forms, and I'll click that now. Okay, so these are the 3 questions. First, what is the first step of the scientific method? I'm not going to tell you because you're going to watch the video. Then the next question, what do scientists observe with, what instrument do they use to make observations? And then when you experiment, you are testing your So you're going to have to answer these. And as you answer these, you have to make sure that you put your email in and your name in, but you'll see that prompt as you log into Google Classroom. All right, so let's go back to the video. Let's go back to the video. Mm-hmm. Jump drive. Okay, probably by car. But what direction would you go? Which road would you travel? Okay, some of you may have said, I Google it. Sure, that's one way. But say you don't have Google and you don't have a smartphone, what do? Maybe you said a map. Well, that's what I would do. I'd use a road map and follow it, and with a little luck, arrive at Disneyland. There you go. I also might need a compass. Now, scientists are always curious about the Hmm. Mm. Mm. Mhm. Mm. 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 Mhm. Mhm. The INP. Mhm. Or not so good for driving. Mhm. Right. Mm. Yep. Then it's there. procedure. Mhm. Salt. What happens? Mhm. All right. So now that we have watched the video, we'll go back in and we'll look at the questions. The great thing about the Google Classroom is that you have the video. And so if you need to go back and look at the video to answer the questions, then you have the option of doing that. Right. And so what I want you to do, scholars, as we wrap up the lesson, remember, we are going to be working on the scientific method this week. Tune in to Dojo. Here, let me pull this out. Boom. All right, so we are going to be using learning the scientific method this week. We are going to be using Class Dojo to correspond, and then to also, I'll be posting videos from the class. In addition to that, we will also be using Google Classroom, and I will have resources in Google Classroom for you. Please check every day. The lesson will probably be up around 12 o'clock every day, 12 o'clock, 12:15 every day. If you have any questions, remember that your teachers are here for you from 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock, and that you can email us, you can message us. If you have our phone numbers, you can text us. But the I think I prefer you to message me on Dojo because I won't have to pull away to check emails with from other scholars. So if I'm on Dojo, then I can message and then I can help each scholar back to back to back. So, but if you have any other questions, please make sure that you hit me up. Again, Quizlet, go to Classroom, Google Classroom, and watch the video. And after you watch the video, complete the assignment in Google Forms, which is also in Google Classroom under Scientific Method. And then if you have any questions, make sure you hit Ms. Davis up. Legends of Learning is up, and I posted 2 new games. One is just a continuation of what we were already studying, and the other one is called The Awakening. Mhm. So check that one out. And that's pretty much it. So I love you guys, and I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Bye.